Hey everyone, it's 11:12. This is Timothy from Pony Prod, and I just thought of a great new idea. So I've been writing horror stories for a while. I am an author of my first book called Little Nightmares, and I thought of a great idea would be to actually read you some of my stories. That way you get more of an audio rather than reading it yourself. So this is one of my first stories, and it's also one of my favorites. So this horror story is called Smile. So I hope you all like it. So I'm gonna start reading now. Have you ever have you ever wondered what an alternate universe would look like? Would it be a beautiful place, or would it become a personal nightmare? These are questions I'd ask myself each day as I lived through my boring and somewhat depressing life. You might ask yourself, is the character of the story depressed? The answer is no. My name is Stephen, and I live a happy life. It's just everyone around me chooses to live their lives with grief. To tell you a little bit about myself, I'm a 20-year-old college student who lives with his family, goes to shows on the weekends with his friends, and studies his ass off during the week. Sounds pretty cool, right? The answer is wrong. I grew up in a small town where everyone around me keeps to themselves. The store clerks, my professors, and even my friends. You can't crack jokes because you'll find that it is only yourself that is laughing. Um, my life seemed pretty dull, so this year I thought I'd do a little interior decorating. After class, I decided to hit up the local pawn shop to see if there was anything I could decorate my room with. As I opened the door, the owner, Mr. Chang, greeted me with a smile. "What can I do for you today, son?" he asked sweetly. I looked at it with a sign of disbelief, and I told him that since moving, my room only had a few posters and action figures lined up, and I wanted something cool to put on my wall. Mr. Chang nodded and ran out to the back of the shop and pulled out a hand-painted mirror. The mirror was colored with shades of gold, green, and blue. "Stephen, this artifact has come all the way from Germany. It's supposed to open a door to anything you can dream of." While I listened to his words, I felt a great deal of disbelief, but I decided to buy the mirror to help out his side of the business, and it also had a nice look to it. I then took the mirror home and placed it on my wall. One thing I haven't told the reader is about my dreams. When I was very little, I would dream about a magical world named Hysteria. In Hysteria, no one ever frowned, there was fun and games all around, and the inhabitants would always stop to laugh and play with you. In each dream, I would be greeted by a magical fellow named Mr. Wiggles. Mr. Wiggles was a young man dressed in a purple and a black tailcoat, with shiny black tights and a top hat to match everything. He looked exactly like me, except he was always happy, which is something I dreamed about for years. Nowadays, I had to grow up and realize that the world was not a happy place, but I still held on to my dreams. Before I went to bed, I hung the mirror on my wall, looked up at the stars, and whispered, "Magic mirror, I wish you to take a journey to Hysteria. I want to see a magical place where everyone around me will smile all the time." I looked at the mirror, but nothing happened, so I closed my eyes and fell asleep. As I began to doze off into a slumber, I was suddenly awakened by a calming voice. "Hey kid, over here, look at the mirror," the voice urged. I rubbed my eyes and turned to the mirror. There was Mr. Wiggles looking out at me from Hysteria. Mr. Wiggles then looked at me and extended his hand to greet me. "Hello, Stephen. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Mr. Wiggles, and I come from a world where everyone smiles eventually. Come with me and I'll show you." I thought for a second and grabbed his hand as he whisked me away into the mirror. In a flash of light, we arrived in Hysteria. As we walked around the streets, to my amazement, everyone around me was smiling. Wiggles and I went to the local store to pick up some sweets. The store clerk greeted us as we picked out some lollipops and told me we could come back anytime we wanted. Mr. Wiggles then took me to the docks where he took me on a magical boat ride around Hysteria. While I looked over the water, I could see that everyone on the land was waving to me and cheering Wiggles and I to keep paddling. Finally, Wiggles took me to see a musical. The actors on stage put on a magical performance, combining colorful dancing and amazing voices. When the show finished, we left the theater and began walking the streets. Wiggles then looked into my eyes to ask me a question. "So, kid, do you really like it here?" he spoke as his grin widened. "Of course I do, Wiggles. This place is awesome. There's so much to do around here. Everyone is so happy and friendly, unlike the place where I live." Wiggles then began to pace back and forth, and then stopped and looked me in the eyes. "Tell you what, kid, I'll make you a deal. I'll let you live here in Hysteria as long as I can live in yours. It sounds like your family and friends need to smile, so I want to spread my magic everywhere. I had to think for a couple of seconds before I agreed. Wiggles then shook my hand and winked at me. Don't worry, kid. You will not regret this. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared, and I was left to live with the inhabitants of Hysteria. The next day, I had the fun I had been longing for in years, but all of a sudden, this began to fade closer to the evening. Everyone around me would always smile. I could make a bad joke, and they would smile. I could tell them I missed my family, and then they would still smile. This became disturbing very quickly. I ran back to the store clerks to investigate. I barged through the door and yelled right in his face. Why does everyone have to smile? I can't say a single thing to upset anyone, and it's really creeping me out. The store clerk then smiled and unbuttoned his shirt. What I saw next hurt me even more. There beneath the shirt was a series of incisions connecting thread through his flesh from his throat, his jaw keeping his face locked in place with an everlasting grin. He then turned to me and spoke. Stephen, do you really want to know why we always smile? It's because Wiggles makes us smile, and it tears through our bones if we try to make any other kind of emotion. As I heard those words, I screamed and ran outside. When I ran to the entrance of the candy shop, I continued to scream when I saw that all the inhabitants looked just like he did. Flesh and bone pulled back on their necks and faces, grinning at me with faces of anguish and suffering. I quickly ran to the streets to find the mirror so I could get back to the real world. When I reached the edge of town, I finally reached the mirror, but there, to my horror, was Mr. Wiggles smiling out at me through the glass. His face became a pale white. His eyes grew with a tinted yellow, and he began laughing, revealing lots of sharp teeth. He then turned to me and opened his lips to speak. Why do you want to leave? Isn't this what you wanted? He sneered. No, this is something I thought I wanted, until I found out what you did to those people. Wiggles then smiled and took a bow. Before I leave you, Stephen, allow me to introduce myself one more time. My name is Mr. Wiggles, and now that I'm in your world, I'll make sure that everyone you've ever loved and ever cared about will smile forever. With a quick flash of light, he and the mirror vanished, leaving me to live in a dystopia for the rest of my life. A year later, the pawn shop in the real world relocated to the United States. A little girl looking to find something to decorate a room with opened the door and was greeted by a man smiling by the counter. The man then extended his arm towards hers and spoke. Hello, little one. My name is Mr. Chang, but you can also call me Wiggles. Well, everyone, I hope you liked my first recorded story, and yeah, leave comments, and if you like, I'll post again. All right, have a good one.